I already gave a little introduction to what is coming up now. And I think that I need to introduce Rachel properly before we begin, and I will give some background as well to what we're going to talk about. Dr. Rachel Knightley is fiction and non-fiction author with a background in directing and performing. She coaches communication and performance for all ages and industries, from bar or bat mitzvah to auditions, interviews, weddings and lectures. Her short story collection, Beyond Glass, was published by Black Shook Books in May 2021. She is a founder of Green Ink Writers Gym and contributes to magazines including Starburst and Jewish Renaissance. And before we are going to have a conversation, I just wanted to give a little background. This is an extract from Exodus 4, chapter 4, verses 10 to 14. In it, Moses clearly rejects God's ask to be a speaker, to go to Pharaoh and to the people, to the Israelites who were slaves, and to speak to them. Because, and the words it is that are used here, I believe, are kaved, peh, and lashon, so heavy tongue and heavy mouthed, whatever it means. Some commentators come to a conclusion based on that Moses had some disability, so he couldn't speak properly, or what was understood as a norm. Or some people thought that he was just shy. So it is unclear from the biblical text what exactly was wrong with Moses. And this is the background. And look, at the end of the book, after many years, he delivers not just speech, but a poetry and a song. And this is what inspired me and Rachel to have this conversation. And I'm going to open some of our questions. We did have a conversation before and have 3 questions which we will try to discuss together. And so let's do this way. Rachel.
Hello.
Hi. now we can see you as well. How does Moses' experience in this story compare with clients you work with today?
Thank you, Igor. Thank you very much for asking me to be part of this conversation. I think the way that probably every single human being listening to this will have gone, yes, I see myself in there in some form, is something I see professionally, personally, anybody who wants to build confidence or has to give a public speech in some form. What it all tends to be about is a bit like what you've just quoted from Moses, but also picking up very nicely from the Jonah story this week, is it's easier to say I can't than to look at, but what if I can? And because my background was in theatre and we work with Stanislavski, where one of the major tools is the magic if. For example, if you're acting, if you're playing Hamlet, then what you might say to yourself is, I know that my dead father is not really walking along those battlements telling me I need to kill somebody for him, but I don't know what that experience is like, but I do know what fear is like, and I do know what being divided emotionally feels like. Everything that character is feeling, I'm feeling myself. So it's very much about accepting that human beings have all of those same ingredients. And that's what it is for acting. But it's exactly the same for speaking, that we can so much stand in our own way, as in between ourselves and what it is we want to achieve, or what we believe we can contribute. And if you see it as a conversation with a literal God, as we do here, then that's one thing. But sometimes it's a conversation with your inner self. I mean, I remember the phrase that Rabbi Alex used recently about God being the deepest part of yourself. And either way, it's about what do I really believe and what do I really want to achieve? And having the courage to face the unknown within yourself. And that is what happens when somebody goes beyond their previous boundaries, as he says, and achieves something bigger from their own ingredients. And what I tend to say, answering your question more directly, what I tend to say to everybody is that audience out there is not looking for perfect. They are not looking for that because it doesn't exist. What they're looking for is authentic, or it doesn't exist in the human. What does exist is authenticity, is connection. And if you're prepared to give a little piece of yourself, you're going to get one back from that audience. There's going to be connection.
Oh, thank you. And I think it reminded me of course, of another story with Moses when the first set of tablets were broken. And we only live with the second set of tablets, but that are like the first one, but not the same. And of course, according to the Midrash, in the ark, which traveled with people, were both sets. Just as a reminder that sometimes, we do all make mistakes. And it's very powerful. Thank you. I think, so at some point you told me that Jewish thought and Jewish principles and Jewish concepts inform your public speaking teaching. And I am very intrigued. So what are they? Can you give a few examples?
I think before it was conscious, it was the stories, and what we've just said is one example of that. But if I can pick one thing that is absolutely central and helpful to me personally, and that I would offer to anybody else and do regularly, it is the concept of Hineni, which I will repeat myself a little and say that part of that is, it's not about trying to be more or perfect or better than you are. It is about being able to say, this is what I am, and this is what I think, and this is what I believe. And what the training that I do does is that you take a bit more time over things and you build confidence to think about what that message is before you share it. And that's why me having this conversation now, there are fewer ums, ers, and sorries than there would be before I realized we can take as much time as we need. If it's worth saying, you take the time that you need to say it and to think about it. And part of that is planning, but part of that is also recognizing that it's totally and utterly about the message, not the messenger. It's not about Rachel. It's about what matters to me. It's about what I want to bring across. So Hineni, here I am. That is what the reason I wear that is because that concept allows you to acknowledge that all you really need or have is yourself. It stops you from going, does my hair look all right? I shouldn't have worn this shirt. What if, what if, what if? And instead, all of that energy about the messenger goes into being able to focus on the message, goes into being able to think about, what do I want to say? What do I want to achieve? What am I here to do that I can contribute to the universe?
Yeah, I don't have the text with me now, but it reminded me of prayer. In fact, it's probably my favorite part of High Holiday liturgy. It is labeled in our machzor as the prayer for service leaders and rabbis before the service, which you're supposed to recite just for yourself before you begin leading the service. And it basically says that you know and I know that I am unworthy. I'm not the person who is supposed to be here standing in front of the congregation, but it happened that they chose me. So please accept me who I am. And that's I think very healing and very it gives some understanding of, yes, you might not be the best version of what could have been, but it just happened that you're here. So try to achieve as as much as you can since you're here. Yes.
I think that's absolutely right, and it does become about what can be brought through you, and that's why it's all those insecurities about appearance or about am I doing. You need to find your way through that and into I will bring across this message as best I can because this message is worth having. So it comes through us, not from us.
Thank you. And the last question for now, for today, is what would you say to anyone who has a challenge ahead of them or thinks that they can't speak in public? Because I can imagine that many people might have some anxiety or fear even of public speaking.
I will go back to God and Leonard Cohen briefly before I answer that directly. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. What makes a speech good is not about it going perfectly, is not about not tripping over your words ever, or for people with speech difficulties, or in my case, dyspraxia, coordination issues. All of this, it's an obstacle, but don't confuse the obstacle with the objective. If you start worrying too much about the obstacle and focusing all on that, you drive straight towards it. So what we do is focus on why this is important, what you want said, and you take all the time you need over it, and you trust yourself to prepare a bit, but also listen to yourself in the moment, and share it as honestly as you can. Because your audience, even if it's 100 million people, it's only 100 million times one. And they're all humans, and they're all just as scared of things as you are.
Thank you. And and of course, it's when Moses is standing on the Mount Nebo, looking at the promised land, but he understands that he will never enter it. And this is something which I think also important to you might not achieve everything 100%, but it doesn't mean that it is not worth trying and doing. And the moment we end the Torah, which will happen next week, they read very last verses of Torah, we will begin again. And we might never enter the promised land or achieve our dreams and goals, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. Interesting.
And we're giving the opportunity that somebody else can. That works when you do your little bit.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And I think that this kind of, I find the conversational parts of our sermons a very good innovation and invention of the pandemic era, because they started on Zoom, because we realized that we can do something and we can make our services more diverse and engaging by doing so. And I hope it is not the last time that we are speaking in public or in private. And thank you so much. And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.